My mother has always been extremely good to me since I was little, but just before I was about to be recommended for admission to Tsinghua University, my mother suddenly passed away at home. I forced myself to endure the grief and arranged a very grand funeral for my mother. Before she was sent into the cremation furnace, I overheard my aunt talking to someone on the phone. She called the person on the other end of the phone sister. Grandma only gave birth to 2 daughters, the person auntie calls sister can only be mom. I froze instantly in place, my hands trembling uncontrollably. Mom said, I always knew she was no good, and now I finally don't have to put up with her anymore. The she was referring to was me. I looked toward where the body was laid, my heart chillingly cold. Finally, I turned around crying and screaming, hugging my mom's corpse. Mom, I can't bear to leave you. A familiar voice from my mother echoed in my ears, laced with a hint of satisfaction. Well, how is she regretting it to death now? Aunt replied, yes, she's been crying non-stop these past few days. Her eyes are swollen like a sad frog. You really know how to hurt someone, sis. If Lin Yu hadn't agreed to withdraw from the Tsinghua admission, you'd have come up with this scheme to torment her. She definitely won't be able to get over it in such a short time, let alone prepare well for the exam. My mother lightly scolded my aunt. What are you saying? What do you mean I'm being harsh? If Lin Yu had agreed to apply to a local university, would I have had to come up with this plan? Since she was little, I've disciplined her so much that she genuinely believes we have a deep mother-daughter bond. Now that she knows I died because of her, she definitely won't be able to accept it. 2 weeks ago, I happily told my mom that I had passed the preliminary exam for Tsinghua University's admission. As long as the follow-up interview goes smoothly, I'm sure to get a guaranteed admission to Tsinghua. My mom was very happy at the time, but her expression changed after she answered the phone and came back. She said, maybe you should just apply to a local university. I can't bear to see you go far away. At that moment, I felt very sweet inside and even hugged her while acting coquettishly. Come on, there isn't even a single first-tier university in our local area. It would be a waste of your daughter's talent to study here. Mom, don't worry, even though I'm going to Tsinghua University, I'll come back to see you on weekends. You're so attached to me. I really don't know what you'll do when I get married someday. Mom opened her mouth, wanting to persuade me further, but I kept deflecting and joking around to avoid the topic. Not long after, Mom suddenly passed away at home. I clenched my hand tightly, not feeling any pain even as my nails dug into my flesh. Aunt asked, but sister, isn't this too unfair to Lin Yu? After all, you've raised her for over a decade. Her going to Tsinghua is already a great honor for our family, isn't it? My mother spoke louder. Where's the unfairness? If it weren't for her, I wouldn't be afraid to recognize Shurqing now. I thought I could endure until she was gone. But she's becoming more and more detestable. It's one thing to steal Shurqing's motherly love, but now you're even taking away her guaranteed admission to Tsinghua University. A person can't have it all, and Shurqing can't be expected to give in to everything either. I looked towards the morning hall, where people were coming and going to pay their respects. Among them were many of my teachers and classmates, but as my deskmate, Zhuang Shurqing's figure was nowhere to be seen. Usually, whenever there was something, my mom would prepare a portion for Zhuang Shurqing, and hers was often even better than mine. Today, when Zhuang Shurqing didn't come to mourn, I thought she was too cold-hearted. It turns out I was the foolish one. Not that she was cold-hearted. Aunt's voice came again. Sis, when do you plan to come back? My mother fell silent for a moment, then replied with great determination, I'm not going back. I've missed out on Shurqing's maternal love for over a decade, and now it's time to make it up to her. Aunt hesitated, but what if Lin Yu is still well prepared and passes the Tsinghua assessment? You know her, since she was little, there's nothing she's set her mind to that she hasn't accomplished. My mother said confidently, that's where you come in. From time to time, mention me in front of her, and say that I died because I couldn't bear the thought of her going to a university far away, with such a thorn stuck in her heart. I don't believe she'll have the mind to prepare for the Tsinghua assessment, Auntie complained with a smile. You're really putting me in a difficult position. You know I'm not good at lying. The two of them laughed, a few seconds of laughter making my heart cold with unease. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my steps, and turned back toward the morning hall. Before entering, I saw the red roses at the door, and found it utterly ironic, such a large quantity of red roses, all of them bought from the flower shop at a much higher price by me. The other person was stunned when I delivered the roses to the crematorium. Roses symbolize love, and it was the first time they had seen them brought to a crematorium. I stepped forward, My eyes. Swollen and painful. To explain, my mother once said her life should be as passionate as a red rose, so I wanted her final journey to be accompanied by the red roses she loved most. The other person even praised me, saying I was filial now. Thinking back on those words, I feel it was an insult. Everything I did was, in my mother's eyes, proof that I was becoming more and more repulsive, so she couldn't bear it anymore and faked her death to escape. I walked toward the ice coffin in the center of the mourning hall. I wanted to know, if my mother wasn't dead, then who was the person lying inside the coffin, identical to her? I leaned over the ice coffin, examining it closely, from the eyebrows to the nose and then the mouth. Not even a small mole on the tip of the nose was left untouched. They were all exactly the same. Even the position of the mole was identical. Just as I was about to get up, I suddenly remembered the wax figures in the wax museum. Figures that looked exactly like real people, taking advantage of everyone's inattention. I opened the ice coffin and let out a loud cry. Mom, I can't bear to leave you. I threw my upper body onto my mother, clutching her hand tightly and refusing to let go. Grandma jumped up in fright, hugging me and pulling me back desperately. Following Grandma's force, I scraped a piece of skin from my mother's palm with my fingernails, clutching it tightly in my hand. Grandma shouted angrily, "What's wrong with you, child? Even after your mother's death, you won't let her rest in peace. If it weren't for you, would she have died in her 40s? I rubbed the crumbs in my hand, soft and greasy, and looked down to see that it was indeed wax. Tears welled up instantly, my voice choked with emotion, and I immediately acted as if I couldn't accept the truth. Grandma, do you think Mom isn't really dead? I think I heard her voice. She just had a medical checkup recently, and the doctor said she could live to be 90. How could someone just pass away at home like that?" A flicker of panic crossed Grandma's face. "You, don't talk nonsense. Matters of life and death are unpredictable. Even the death certificate has been issued, so the person is definitely dead. Don't talk nonsense. 7 days ago, my aunt called to tell me my mom was gone. I rushed home and saw my mom, dressed up, lying in the ice coffin. My aunt said that ever since she found out I was going to college out of town, my mom has been so anxious she couldn't sleep all night. Today, while on the phone with her, she suddenly went silent. When my aunt rushed over to check, she found her gone. The weather is hot, and the body couldn't be kept for long, so she quickly arranged for an ice coffin and had my mom laid inside. I stood at the door, unable to believe it. I walked forward, wanting to open the ice coffin, but before my hand could even touch it, my grandmother slapped it away. My grandmother slapped me hard across the face. "You ungrateful wretch, if you hadn't insisted on going to college out of town, would your mother have died of a heart attack? Is a prestigious university so important that you'd use your mother's life to pave your way?" Her voice was sharp, filled with accusations against me. Despite her petite frame, the force behind her slap was immense. A slap made my face instantly swell and turn red, burning with pain. Relatives around us began to discuss it extensively. "So disrespectful. Xiao Feng has had such a hard life, working so hard for half her life only to raise such an ungrateful child. What's the use of someone like that? Even if they get into Tsinghua, with such poor character, they're destined to go nowhere in life." The weight of the gossip was suffocating, and my mind struggled to speak up, to explain that it wasn't like that. I wasn't the ungrateful person everyone said I was. It had been my scholarship supporting the family all these years, and my mother hadn't suffered, but the words never made it out. My aunt reached out and tightly covered my mouth. She held me close, crying out her grievances as she squeezed me tightly. "Sister, my poor sister, you died so unjustly." Hearing the aunt's words, the relatives' gazes turned as sharp as knives, piercing me even more intensely. I struggled desperately to break free from the aunt, wanting just once to see my mother one last time, but I couldn't break free. It was also too sudden at the time. I was caught off guard and couldn't react. Looking back now, there were so many flaws in the original story. Next, my grandmother and aunt were extremely cautious, afraid that I might open the ice coffin again, but until the wax figure was pushed into the incinerator, I didn't take another step closer. Aunt said, "Where your mother always cherished you the most, let her stay with you for a few more days. When Auntie finds a suitable burial plot, we'll give your mother a proper burial." I looked down at the urn that had been thrust into my arms, feeling a deep sense of hypocrisy. Auntie claimed she never lied, yet she spun flawless tales and even managed to forge a fake urn of ashes. It's not that she couldn't find a suitable burial plot. She just couldn't bear the thought of spending hundreds of thousands on a resting place for a fake. I carried the ashes home, looking around with a hollow feeling in my heart. As soon as I turned on my phone, I saw Zhuang Shiqing's WeChat Moments post. The latest one was edited an hour ago. In the photo, a man and a woman were hugging Zhuang Shiqing tightly, the man's hand resting on the woman's shoulder, appearing very intimate. The text reads, "Thank you, for selling your gold bracelet to take me around the world. It was your unwavering support that gave me the courage to venture into the world." Location displayed in Malaysia. I scrolled down further and saw a full family photo. Without exception, Zhuang Shiqing's mother had been replaced with an anime-style head. A curious classmate asked below, "Why did you give Auntie an anime head in every photo?" Zhuang Shiqing replied sheepishly, "Oh, my mom was too shy to show her face, so I gave her an anime head." I compared the hostess in the group photos back and forth, even with changed clothes and an anime head. Some subtle everyday gestures don't lie. The woman in the photo with Zhuang Shiqing is my mother. I looked up and around, and the air in the room seemed to ripple. The house was still exactly as it was when my mother left, under my control. Even the cup of tea she hadn't finished that day was neatly placed on the coffee table. I put down my phone, reached out, and knocked the cup to the floor. Then I stood up, pulled out all the family photos, and burned them, smashing the frames as well. I took out everything my mother had left behind, not a single item spared, and destroyed them all. Looking around the room, which was now in complete disarray with no trace of my mother left, I felt much more at ease. After calming my emotions, I took out my phone and called the police directly. The police arrived quickly, with my aunt and grandmother following closely behind them. Aunt frowned and asked, Why did you call the police? Your mother's funeral arrangements have already been taken care of." I replied calmly, "Auntie, it's not about my mom. There's been a burglary at home. Look at the mess it's made." I stepped aside to let them see the mess inside the room. You know, every time I win a prize in a competition, I buy my mom a gold bracelet, at least 200 grams or more. Now it's all gone. At the current gold price, these bracelets could be worth over 100,000. I said this while showing them the empty jewelry box. Auntie's expression became somewhat awkward, and she started to explain, well, that's not. I cut in, "That's not what, Auntie, you can't just make things up about 100,000, now that the police are here, let them investigate carefully, everything will come out." Grandma tugged at Auntie's sleeve, and Auntie snapped back to reality. She gritted her teeth and replied, "Where isn't actually a thief. Didn't you say you were going to study at Tsinghua? Your mom thought Beijing is a big city with high living costs, so she recently asked me to sell those gold bracelets, saying no matter how hard she struggles, she can't let you be looked down upon in college." I opened my mouth wide, stunned. "Auntie, why didn't you say so earlier? I already called the police. It would be bad if the police took you for a thief." The aunt's face turned quite unpleasant, forcing out the words, "Haven't I been busy with your mother's funeral arrangements lately? I forgot to tell you, never expecting that right after your own mother's death, you'd go rummaging through her gold bracelets." Auntie is truly a veteran at the workplace. With just a few words, she cleared her own suspicion and conveniently pinned the label of unfilial on me. I lowered my head, tears instantly streaming down my face, putting on a reluctant expression. "Auntie, I just wanted to keep a few of my mom's things as mementos. Look, all of my mom's belongings at home have been destroyed. I thought the bracelet was hidden well enough that the thief wouldn't find it, so I went to check. These gold bracelets were all bought by me for my mom. I really wasn't after her gold." The police officer looked at the aunt with a suspicious gaze. A hint of embarrassment appeared on the aunt's face as she replied stiffly, "That's not what I meant." "You're overthinking it again," I said. "Before my mom passed away, she was still thinking about saving up for my tuition. I must study hard and do well on the exams, so she can rest in peace." The aunt's lips twitched slightly. "There's no need for that. Just let things take their natural course." "Aunt, where is the money from selling the bracelet?" I asked awkwardly, nervously fidgeting with the hem of my pants. "You know I spent all my money on the funeral, and now our house has been ransacked by thieves. I don't even have money for breakfast tomorrow." After saying that, I kept staring at the aunt with expectant eyes. The aunt, flustered under the gaze of me and the police officers, couldn't hold her ground and finally gritted out, "The card is at home. Once I get back, I'll transfer it to you." "Me? Anta, maybe you should just transfer the money to me via Alipay. I'm really worried you might forget if I wait for you to do it. After all, you forgot to mention Something as big as the gold bracelet. If it weren't for the thief breaking in, I probably would have been kept in the dark about this whole thing. As I spoke, my stomach growled at just the right moment. The police officer beside me gave an even more subtle look. Auntie fumbled with her phone, entering the password several times before finally managing to transfer the money. Hearing the Alipay notification that 190,000 had arrived, I smiled happily. Before leaving, the police officer gave me a pointed reminder, "Young lady, your mother is gone. Keep a close eye on your own things. Don't let anyone trick you out of them. If anything happens, call the police station. We'll be there right away." After saying that, he gave a warning glance at the aunt and grandmother. The aunt met the police officer's gaze and didn't dare to argue, her expression clearly showing she was holding back her anger. After the police left, the aunt glared at me fiercely and hurriedly took my grandmother. Back home, I turned on the surveillance camera at my grandmother's house. Aunt was indeed on a video call with Mom. As soon as the chat connected, she started venting. "Sister, you faking your death is bad enough, but why did you take the family's gold bracelet? We almost got caught," Mom complained. "You're so stupid. Just go along with Lin Yu's story and tell the police it was stolen by a thief." Aunt took a few deep breaths and explained to Mom, "Over 100,000 is no small amount. Which thief would be willing to take the blame for this? If we keep digging deeper, your fake death will definitely come to light. Don't forget how your death certificate was obtained. You and Zhuangfeng don't want to go to jail, do you? For your sake today, I've really lost all face. You can't expect me to pay for this money too, can you?" My mom quickly reassured Auntie, "Am I that kind of person? I'll transfer the money to you right away." That Lin Yu is such a cunning girl, always trying to snatch everything for herself. My mother took the opportunity to belittle me once again in her words. After a while, the aunt checked her phone, her expression softening. It seemed she had received the money not long after. Zhuang Shiqing returned to school. I calculated the time, and after transferring the money for the gold bracelet, I should have booked my return flight. Zhuang Shiqing stormed into the classroom and glared at me fiercely. I wasn't the least bit afraid and stared right back. The other person actually laughed and took out a bunch of souvenirs from her backpack, handing them out to classmates. Every student in the class received her souvenir, except me. After sending it, she gave me an affected glance. "These are souvenirs my mom picked out for everyone, all unique little items from the area." The classmates who received the souvenirs looked envious. "Shiqing, your mom is so great. I wish my mom were like yours." Zhuang Shiqing was quite pleased with herself and pretended to apologize as she leaned in close to me. "Lin Yu, I'm sorry, my mom forgot yours. I clearly told her about you, but she didn't remember at all." She even seemed to have a helpless expression on her face. I glanced at her, then looked at the souvenir in my classmate's hand. I replied faintly, "It's fine, it's good to forget me." I pointed at the model of the frangipani and jasmine flowers in my classmate's hand. "Do you know that frangipani and jasmine flowers in Malaysia are specifically used for worship? You know who these flower models are meant for, right?" Everyone who heard my words suddenly felt the souvenirs in their hands become scalding hot. Zhuang Shiqiang forced a smile and retorted, "Lin Yu, I didn't bring you a souvenir, but you don't have to twist my good intentions, do you?" I shrugged and said, "Baidu is a great tool." Upon hearing this, the classmates immediately pulled out their phones, their expressions changing drastically, and returned all the items, piling them up all over the table. Zhuang Shiqing angrily swept everything into the trash can. After school, I met Zhuang Shiqing's father, Zhuangfeng. Zhuangfeng is a police officer at our district police station. He was the one who issued my mother's death certificate. My grandmother often praises Zhuangfeng to everyone, saying he's like a son-in-law to her and has helped her a lot. I thought it was just praise for someone else, but it turned out to be true. Zhuang Shiqing made every effort at school to show how good her mother was to her. Today she flaunted the designer jacket her mother bought. Tomorrow she shared the steak lunch her mother carefully prepared for her. I watched as the prices of things kept dropping and sneered from the sidelines. It was the first time my aunt had come to visit since the last time I called the police. "We've found a burial plot for your mother. The price is just a bit high. Auntie's salary isn't much, and she still has to support the family. As for your grandmother's pension, let's not even mention it. It's barely enough for her own needs. I've done the math. Selling this house should be just about enough. Then you can move in with your grandmother, and she can cook for you." Auntie immediately stated that she and Grandma couldn't help. I remained silent and didn't speak. She continued, Your mother didn't get to enjoy much happiness in her lifetime. After she's gone, you can't let her be without a grave. I squeezed out a few tears and went along with what my aunt was saying. Auntie, don't worry, I won't let my mother's spirit be without a place to rest. Nowadays, isn't it trendy to have something like an ash room? I'll set up a memorial tablet for my mother at home, so she can live with me. Before she passed, she sold her gold bracelet just to raise money for my tuition. If she knew I sold the house to buy her a grave, she'd never rest in peace. Auntie's voice was filled with urgency. How can that be the same? Auntie paused. Your mother didn't want it because she cared about you, as her daughter. If you don't do it, you're being unfilial. Your mother is dead, and you can't even ensure she rests in peace. Do you still deserve to be called her child, born from her womb for 10 months? I couldn't stop crying, as if I had been hurt by the aunt's words. But Auntie, I'm not yet an adult, and my mom has passed away. The bank won't agree to let me sell the house. You know, even though this house is in my name, I'm still paying the mortgage every month. Unless my dad comes to handle the house, the mortgage payments are automatically deducted from his card every month. He said if he sells it, the bank won't refuse. After saying that, I took out my phone as if to make a call. The aunt panicked and raised her hand, knocking the phone to the ground. No, don't tell your dad. Realizing her reaction was too intense, the aunt's voice softened slightly. You know, your parents' divorce wasn't exactly amicable. If your dad finds out you're selling the house to buy a burial plot for your mom, he definitely won't agree. It's better if we keep it from him. I pretended to be in a difficult position. What should we do then? Maybe I should take my mother's death certificate to the bank first and see if I can ask the bank to make some exceptions. The aunt thought for a moment, nodded in agreement, then turned and went home to get the death certificate. Auntie handed me the death certificate and hurriedly wanted to take me to the bank. I refused, telling my aunt that today was Friday and the bank was already closed, so I could take time off on Monday to go with her. Auntie, upon hearing that I would delay my studies to deal with the house, quickly agreed, but the next day, she rushed over and took back the death certificate. She said, "You're still a child, it's better for me to keep such an important document. I'll bring it with me to the bank on Monday." I smiled, knowing full well that Mom must have been worried about what I might do with the death certificate. After all, with a death certificate, it's easy to cancel someone's household registration at the police station. In China, besides the dead, only undocumented people have no household registration. I looked at the aunt with trust in my eyes, praising her. I said, "Auntie, you're so meticulous." On Monday, we went to the bank early, and my aunt pretended to be very pitiful, crying to the bank about how hard it was for my mother. In public, the bank had no choice but to agree that as long as the house was sold, they would accept a minor's signature for the sale. After leaving the bank, my aunt felt much more at ease and took me to the real estate center, where she listed the house for sale at over 100,000 yuan below market price. I got into a taxi pretending to go home, asked the driver to circle around a few times, and then returned to the real estate center. The agent looked very regretful when he heard that I wanted to withdraw the house listing. "Are you really not considering selling? At this price, it will definitely sell quickly." I nodded firmly. This house was bought for me by my father. Now that my mother has passed away, my aunt is trying to trick me into selling it. I grimaced miserably. I don't want to. If I sell the house, I'll have to live under someone else's roof. The agent widened his eyes, disdainfully cursed the aunt a few times, and quickly withdrew the message. After leaving the house, I got into my dad's car. Dad asked me, "Are you sure you want to cancel your mom's household registration? If you cancel it, your mom won't be able to use WeChat or Alipay, let alone live like a normal person." I smiled and replied to my dad, "Isn't this mom's wish? She wants to stay by Zhuang Shiqing and her daughter's side to take care of them. Once her household registration is cancelled, she'll have plenty of time to look after them." My dad and I drove to a police station far from home, with the death certificate and household registration book. The cancellation process went quickly. Auntie thought the death certificate she took back the next day was genuine, but after I obtained the real death certificate, I contacted someone who forged documents and had a fake one made urgently. The fake certificate could fool bank staff, but not the police station's system. I didn't understand. Why would Mom insist that Zhuang Feng use his position to get a real death certificate when we could have just used a fake one? Perhaps the joy of reunion had gone to their heads. I asked my dad, "Is Zhuang Shiqing the child of Mom and Zhuang Feng?" My dad looked troubled and shook his head. "Zhuang Feng was your mom's first love. Your grandfather strongly opposed their relationship back then, so they broke up. I never expected Zhuangfeng to get divorced and be transferred to your community, and your grandmother even played matchmaker for them. I really don't understand what they were thinking. Except for your grandfather, everyone in that family seems to have lost their minds. As he spoke, Dad started laughing. Instead of appreciating a genius like you with an IQ over 200, they go and fawn over that worthless daughter of theirs, and even pull off such a foolish stunt. I think they'll have plenty of fights in the future. I looked out the window, feeling quite happy. Filial piety, filial piety. How can I, as a good daughter, not follow my mother's wishes? Not long after canceling the household registration, my aunt called. Lin Yu, did you ask the agent to take the house off the market? Also, did you secretly cancel your mother's household registration? The death certificate is clearly in my hands. How did you manage to do that? I put down my pen, leaned back, and rested against the back of the chair, speaking slowly. Yeah, I thought about it, but I just can't bear to sell the house. There are too many memories of me and my mom inside. If I don't sell the house, my mom can see me as soon as I come out of the urn. But if I'm buried in the cemetery, she'd have to float around for ages just to come back and find me. Auntie's breathing grew heavier when she heard my words. But then you can't cancel your mom's household registration either. The household registration is still there, so we still have some hope, as if the family isn't missing this person. I let out a cold laugh and started making things up. I heard that the living world and the underworld are separate. If the household registration in the living world hasn't been cancelled, the underworld won't recognize someone as dead. Then, if the underworld doesn't recognize it and the living world doesn't acknowledge it, Mom would be stuck in between. So pitiful. The aunt was stunned by my words. But your mother. Before the aunt could finish her sentence, she was interrupted by a familiar voice. Did you do this on purpose because you knew I wasn't dead yet? What sin did I commit in my past life to give birth to a beast like you, who wishes their own mother were truly dead? I only kept this one thing from you, and you have to retaliate against me like this. I find it deeply ironic. Just this one thing. It's only because I found out about this one thing. You must wish you never gave birth to me. The daughter Zhuangfeng had with another woman is the one you truly love, isn't she? My mother was furious, venting all the resentment she'd accumulated over the years toward me. You just can't compare to Shirqing. Even though she's not my biological daughter, she's much more considerate. She sends messages to check on me every few days, and you just stay cooped up in your room at home, and when you go out, you never even call. It's like you don't even have a family. So what if you win the competition and earn money? In my heart, you can't even compare to a single finger of Shirqing. At that moment, I felt my father was right. Now that you've gotten what you wanted, Zhuang Shirqing will be your daughter from now on. My mother threatened me. Unless you withdraw from Tsinghua's evaluation this time, don't call me mom anymore. I let out a cold snort and hung up the phone. The phone kept ringing with incoming call alerts, so I blocked the number to stop the noise. It wasn't until my dad knocked on the door and called me for dinner. I sat down at the dining table and found that all the food prepared was my favorite. The table for 8 was filled to the brim. Even if you go to war, your father can't help you, but I'll make sure your logistics work is well taken care of. From now on, just focus on preparing for your exams here with me, so you won't be disturbed by irrelevant people or matters. Looking at my dad's smiling face, I felt a pang in my heart. Those who truly love you would do everything in their power to lift you up, while those who don't will always find something lacking. We both enjoyed the meal very much. When my dad found out that I had successfully passed Tsinghua University's assessment and could be directly admitted, he was even happier. I booked several tables at a 5-star hotel, introducing everyone as my daughter, and even posted celebration photos on my social media after the meal. A caption: my little cotton-padded jacket worked so hard, 10 years of effort, and today she finally wielded her sword to slay the college entrance exam monster. The screen was filled with likes. I saw Auntie also liked it, but within a few seconds, she unliked it. It must have been my mom using my aunt's phone to peek at the screen, accidentally touched it by mistake, and then cancelled it out of guilt. My success seems to have made my mom and Zhuang Shirqing even more unconvinced. They are trying their best to prove that they are living better than my dad and me. She registered a Douyin account and started posting vlogs, with the video beginning as a day taking care of a high school senior student. The video includes waking up at 3 a.m. to prepare breakfast for Zhuang Shirqing, carefully packing a lunchbox and driving it to school, as well as Zhuang Shiqing making the most of every second by studying and eating in the car. In the video, the mother didn't hide or cover up. She wore an apron openly while doing household chores, presenting a picture of peaceful years. After posting it on a certain video platform, it resonated with many accompanying mothers, who expressed their feelings in the comments section. This is the mutual affection between mother and daughter. You understand my hardships, and I cherish your efforts. There was a whole series of comments below. Please share mom's link. Please share my dear daughter's link, as if to provoke me. Whenever the account posted a new video, Zhuang Shiqing would forward every single one to me without fail. It's truly impressive that she managed to juggle so many things even before the college entrance exams. It's inevitable that classmates will come across the video. Some classmates who can't hold back are bound to ask in the comments section, "Isn't this Lin Yu's mom? I thought she passed away. How did she become your mom?" Exactly. I remember Lin Yu took a long leave because her mom passed away, and the teacher was worried her guaranteed admission to Tsinghua University would fall through. What on earth is going on? I really can't understand it. As soon as this comment was posted, it was deleted within minutes, causing little ripple. We were all senior high school students in our final year, with little energy to keep dwelling on others' affairs. With no answers and no further entanglement, we turned around and plunged back into the sea of problems. After the college entrance examination, as expected, Zhuang Shiqing performed poorly, almost failing to meet the cutoff for second-tier universities, even though she had previously entered the assessment for guaranteed admission to Tsinghua University, without consistent review. Knowledge can be forgotten quickly. How could one fully immerse themselves in studying when someone is filming nearby? On the day I returned to school to collect my admission notice, the school gate was crowded with reporters, and I was immediately stopped for an interview as soon as I stepped out. "Classmate, may I ask which university you were admitted to?" I unfolded the admission letter and calmly replied, "Tsinghua University." The journalist took a breath and asked with a smile, "What made you so calm even after being admitted to Tsinghua University?" I stared at the camera and said earnestly, "Before I was recommended for admission, my mother faked her death and took my deskmate abroad for a trip. They made me realize that even a mother might not be truly reliable. Only by having a high education and the ability to secure a stable life can one avoid being bullied by others." After hearing my response, the surroundings fell completely silent, with everyone looking at me and the reporter in astonishment. The reporter immediately caught on to the hot topic and wanted to ask more, but my father had already escorted me into the car. Due to the popularity of prestigious schools and the college entrance exam, the matter quickly escalated, making it a top social media trend within a day. The secret to being recommended for admission to Tsinghua, thanks to my mom for faking her death. Why did the mother of the Tsinghua candidate fake her death? Netizens followed the clues and found their Douyin accounts, which were filled with comments criticizing Zhuang Shiqing and my mother. I've never seen someone who forces their own child to give way to the child of an adulterer. Like father, like daughter. The father is a homewrecker, the daughter steals someone else's mother. The whole family is rotten. Even though they hid all the videos as soon as they received the message, I still have the video that Zhuang Shiqing sent me. She was afraid I wouldn't open the link to watch it, so she sent me the downloaded video instead. I registered a secondary account on a certain short video platform and posted all these videos there. Netizens' ability to come up with nicknames has truly gone viral overseas. My mom got a fake dead biological mother label, while Zhuang Shiqing earned the title of daughter who climbed her way up. For a time, both of them became notorious online. As for Zhuang Shiqing's father, Zhuang Feng, how could I possibly forget him? I wrote a letter of complaint to the provincial authorities, reporting that Zhuang Feng had forged a death certificate. Along with it, I sent the original death certificate that I had swapped out. Soon after, Zhuang Feng was investigated by the authorities and, before being thrown into prison, he beat my mother. "It's all your fault. If it weren't for your terrible idea, I wouldn't have lost my secure job and ended up in prison." My mother was beaten so badly that she couldn't get up from the ground. She couldn't understand how wanting to be with the person she loved had led to this situation. Auntie also harbored deep resentment toward my mother. Based on subtle clues, netizens analyzed that Auntie was cooperating with my mother in putting on an act. Whenever Auntie went to work, netizens would gather downstairs at her workplace and use loudspeakers to broadcast her actions. The company couldn't withstand the righteous harassment from netizens and fired the aunt without even giving her any compensation later. I heard from my dad that my mom and the others were living very poorly. Your mom doesn't have a household registration, so she can only take under-the-table jobs. She often gets cheated out of her wages, and any slightly more legitimate job won't hire her once they find out she's undocumented, because your aunt helped your mom. Your uncle and cousin also became the subject of gossip. In the end, he couldn't take it anymore and divorced her. And your grandmother, people say she was flawed from the start, and couldn't catch her breath before she passed away. Hearing these words, I only felt it was a cycle of cause and effect. The actions we take today will eventually form a closed loop at some point in the future. Everyone must take responsibility for their own actions. What are your thoughts after hearing this story? Feel free to share your feelings in the comments section. Now, let's begin a new story. On May Day, my parents brought home a female robot designed for work, but for some reason, there was a glitch in her programming. She not only ignored household chores but also adopted the persona of a fake rich girl, a delicate and innocent little flower. In my previous life, I was furious at the robot, Chayen Chayu, for deceiving the entire family, and in a fit of rage, I dismantled her. But my parents were already dissatisfied with me because of her pretending to be good, and my brother treated her like a treasure, pushing me down the stairs instead. He forgot, robots don't feel pain, but I am a living person. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day the robot was scheduled. When the boss asked me what my requirements were, I only said one thing: please change the robot's gender to male. The boss and the parents exchanged a glance, then awkwardly laughed and explained, little girl, the robots with the highest sales and the most positive reviews here are all female. Male robots are clumsy and careless. How could they handle delicate household chores? Afraid I wouldn't believe him, he immediately picked up a female robot named Bega from the shelf and introduced her various functions to me. Watching the flawless demonstration on the screen, even my parents couldn't help but waver. Man, we don't know much about robots, so let's just listen to the boss. Seeing that my parents were now on his side, the boss breathed a sigh of relief and once again kindly persuaded me, little sister, female robots and male robots are essentially no different. Why go to the extra trouble? I didn't refuse immediately. Instead, I glanced at Beijia and said, all right, give me 20 minutes to try her out. If she doesn't make any mistakes, I'll have my parents buy her and take her home right away. The shopkeeper's smile stiffened, and just as he was about to make excuses, my parents also nodded thoughtfully. Manan is right. What if this robot is just putting on a show and slacks off once it gets home? The boss, under my intense gaze, broke into a cold sweat and finally nodded. I walked over to Beijia and double-clicked the start button. A few seconds later, Beijia's eyes shifted, and it deftly picked up a cloth to clean the nearby shelves. 5 minutes passed, then 10, with no signs of anything unusual. Even my parents began to doubt, glancing at me repeatedly. I just shook my head, urging them to keep watching. 15 minutes passed, and Beijia had completely cleared an entire shelf, about to turn to the next one, when suddenly, something unexpected happened. A stone had appeared on the ground at some point, and Beijia, unaware, stepped on it. She let out a startled cry and fell into her father's arms beside her. The female robots here were all designed with perfect appearances. Even the work-type robots had curves that were both alluring and pitiable. When her father awkwardly caught her, a flush spread from his neck all the way to the tips of his ears. He tried to push Beijia away, but she clung to his embrace, her voice soft and melodious. Master, it's a good thing you caught Beijia, you're so strong. Mother's face turned red and then pale. She stepped forward, grabbed Beijia by the hair, and flung her aside with force. Beijia flew out like a kite with a broken string. She lay weakly on the ground, crying out in a human-like voice, Master, your partner is so fierce. I don't know what I did wrong to make her so angry. It's all my fault. The boss's face turned pale in an instant. Just as he was about to explain, he was grabbed by the collar by his mother, who looked furious. What kind of work robot is this? If it weren't for my daughter's quick thinking, she would have ruined our family. The boss broke out in cold sweat, but still stubbornly defended himself. Beijia might have been a bit impulsive, but I have other types. My parents didn't let him continue. They were starting to have second thoughts, hesitating about whether to bring any other robots home. Just as they were struggling with the decision, I proactively pointed to the male robot behind Beijia. We'll take him. Mom nodded along. clearly still traumatized by the female robot. But Dad looked full of worry. What if the male robot, like Beijia just now, switches from targeting women to targeting men? He didn't mind, but there was still a teenage brother at home, and their parents were a bit hesitant to take the risk. Under everyone's watchful eyes, I pressed the start button on the back of the male robot. Half an hour later, the male robot named Alpha not only completed all the cleaning tasks ahead of schedule but also treated us with great courtesy. He addressed the three of us as father, mother, and child, indiscriminately as master, mistress, and little master. Mom and Dad smiled as they paid Alpha and shoved him into our car. Meanwhile, Beijia, having escaped the program's control, was melted into a pile of scrap metal right before our eyes. Watching the boss trapped and surrounded by onlookers, I couldn't help but give a faint smile. Brother, I'm about to give you a big gift. When we arrived home, my brother was already waiting at the door. Before we even got out of the car, he eagerly stepped forward and leaned into the car window to look. Dad, Mom, you brought Beijia. The moment he locked eyes with Alpha, my brother's smile froze instantly. Looking at his suddenly pale face and exaggerated reaction, I knew the thoughts in my mind were not wrong. Beijia's arrival was not accidental, but a trap deliberately set by my brother to target me. My brother has always resented me for being better than him in every way since we were young, often taking advantage of our parents' absence to do me harm. I foolishly thought this was just the typical love-hate relationship between siblings, so instead of blaming him, I tolerated him in every way. Everything changed only after my parents brought Beijia home. In my previous life, when Beijia entered the house, my brother and I went up to greet her, but as soon as she touched my hand, she suddenly collapsed straight to the ground. When my parents picked her up, confused, they noticed smoke rising from her fingertips. My brother immediately pointed at me and made a scene. Sujiman, Beijia is here to take care of us, not to compete with you for favor. I never expected you to be so malicious, deliberately causing Beijia to lose power the first time you met. My parents also looked at me with confusion in their eyes. Man, you've clearly read the robot manual, so why are you still so careless? At the time, I just thought I had accidentally triggered it and didn't argue, but after a few days of interaction, I realized Beijia's attitude toward me was completely different from everyone else's. In front of my parents, she had always been obedient and compliant with me, but as soon as I was out of my parents' sight and left alone, she would reveal a malicious smile that was anything but robotic. Sujiman, don't get too cocky. I'll take everything that belongs to you sooner or later. I was shocked and furious, and I secretly recorded her threatening words, but just as I called my parents over to expose her true nature, I discovered that all those recordings and videos had already been formatted. My parents were utterly disappointed in me, and Beijia even put on a pitiful victim act, crying and begging my parents to send her away. Man is just young and doesn't understand things. It's my fault for not doing well enough to satisfy her. Master, please send me back to the factory. A robot as incompetent as me deserves to be melted down and remade. From that day on, my parents no longer believed a single word I said, and my brother deliberately stirred things up, making me an outsider in this family. Until one night, when I got up to use the restroom, I overheard my brother and Beijia talking. Beijia, you've done well. That idiot Sujiman will probably never know that you can control all the appliances in the house. I will obey any command from my master. They gazed at each other lovingly, then embraced tightly, their bodies entwined. I broke out in a cold sweat and went to the robot factory owner the next day to demand a refund, only to find him on the phone with my brother. From their conversation, I learned that Beijia belonged to a special batch of robots, equipped with a unique program with only one purpose: to eliminate their owner's most hated person, relentlessly and without end. With a heart as cold as ashes, I returned home, grabbed a screwdriver, and took the initiative to dismantle Beijia first. Just as I finally figured out the trick to making Beijia obey, my brother quietly approached from behind and pushed me down the stairs. Sujiman, it must be you who persuaded your parents to change their minds, right? My brother's excited voice snapped me out of my memories. His eyes were red with anger, and he opened the car door to attack me, but Alpha blocked him. Detected unknown emotional fluctuations. Mission: protect the little master. The older brother was already furious, and now he was even more enraged, slapping Alpha hard across the face. What do you think you are? Get out of my house. Alpha's face was swollen and red, yet he still maintained a protective stance. which was truly touching. Mom and Dad's smiles faded, and they harshly scolded the older brother. This robot was bought by us. It has nothing to do with your sister. I also appropriately showed a hint of annoyance. Brother, what are you doing? Alpha is here to take care of us, not to compete with you for attention. My brother stopped moving, glaring fiercely at the robot named Alpha before turning and walking away. He didn't notice that Alpha's eyes were fixed tightly on him, as if pondering something. During dinner, my parents couldn't stop praising the table full of dishes Alpha had prepared. We thought you only knew how to clean and tidy up the house, but we never expected your cooking skills to be this good. Alpha sat beside me, smiling as he picked out the fish bones from my portion. The masters are too kind. As long as you enjoy your meals, that's my greatest happiness. After saying that, he started broadcasting the day's news, which included celebrity gossip I loved to hear, making my parents and me laugh until we couldn't stop. In the midst of this peaceful scene, my brother suddenly slammed his chopsticks on the table. What did you feed me? He began scratching his cheeks and back incessantly, and red spots of various sizes quickly appeared on his skin, clear signs of an allergic reaction. Ziwan, what's wrong with you? One parent held him up while the other hurriedly called for emergency help. His older brother stared intently at Alpha, his voice hoarse. I can taste it. There's mango in the rice. You made today's dish. You deliberately tried to kill me. My parents' hands paused for a moment, and they both looked at Alpha in unison. Alpha's movements didn't stop until he finished peeling the last shrimp for me. Then he answered firmly, the dietary restrictions of my masters have all been programmed into my system, so there will be no mistakes. Mom flipped through the dishes on the table, hesitating for a while before speaking slowly. I'm allergic to peanuts, so Alpha specifically replaced the dressing in the cold dish with sweet and sour sauce. Man doesn't eat cilantro, so Alpha didn't even give her a single sprig. I followed up on her words and asked, Brother, Alpha is just a robot, and besides, he has no grudge against you. Why would he want to harm you? Is it because you don't like Alpha, so you deliberately made yourself allergic to play the victim? My brother's lips were already swollen high, making it difficult for him to even speak. Only his eyes were bloodshot, glaring at me with resentment. In the end, his life was still the most important. Just as he was panicking, Alpha suddenly stepped forward with a large stride and violently plunged the syringe in his hand into his brother's arm. Unsure of what he was thinking, the brother's face changed drastically, and he struggled frantically. Mom, Dad, he's going to kill me. His hands flailed wildly, and his fingernails left 2 deep bloody scratches on Alpha's face. My parents were startled, and in their flustered attempt to pull him away, they noticed that my brother's allergic symptoms had improved. I carry some medication with me for emergencies. I apologize for causing any trouble to the masters. Alpha's face was bleeding from the wound, and his proper clothes were torn open in a large gash, yet he still maintained a polite and composed demeanor. This sensible demeanor formed a stark contrast with my brother's unreasonable behavior. My father's hand slammed heavily on the table, clearly convinced by what I had just said. Ziwan, how long are you going to keep making unreasonable demands? You were the one who told us to buy the robot in the first place, and now you're the one causing trouble. Apologize to Alpha right now. My brother had just struggled back from the brink of a life-threatening allergic reaction and was still very weak at the moment. Hearing Dad's words, he widened his eyes even more in disbelief. Dad, you want me to apologize to a robot? I watched him, filled with immense grievance, coldly, and couldn't help but think of my previous life, back then, just because I was a bit picky with food. Beijia cried and resigned to my parents, saying she couldn't meet my demands and wasn't fit to work in our home at that time. I was just as unable to defend myself as my brother is now. But what about him? Not only did he force me to kneel before Beijia, but he also shoved cilantro into my mouth when our parents weren't looking. Now, just asking him to apologize made him feel wronged instead. Alpha remained understanding as always, comforting their parents and then taking the initiative to clean up the mess on the floor. The meal ended in an awkward silence. Their parents said nothing and went upstairs, leaving only the older brother huddled pitifully on the sofa, glaring at Alpha's back with resentment in his eyes. Only I knew that he had truly wronged Alpha. Alpha indeed knew that his older brother was allergic to mangoes, so he followed instructions and wouldn't act rashly. The person who put mangoes in his meal was me. Once bitten by a snake, one fears a rope for 10 years. For a few days, his brother kept his distance from Alpha, even choosing to eat out for all 3 meals. During his absence, Alpha took meticulous care of my parents and me, as if we were the real family. I thought life would continue on like this, uneventfully, but I never expected that one morning, when I went downstairs, I would see my brother sitting at the dining table. Brother took the toasted bread slices from Alpha with a smile, constantly praising them. Alpha, your craftsmanship is really impressive. I was wrong to misunderstand you last time, so please don't take it to heart. Mom and Dad exchanged a glance, unsure what mischief he was up to this time, but my brother remained perfectly normal throughout, except when he caught sight of me out of the corner of his eye. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Sujimon, I heard Alpha tried to wake you up several times, but you wouldn't get out of bed. It's one thing to act spoiled and stubborn in front of us, but how could you let Alpha's good intentions go to waste? I realized almost instantly that my brother was trying to use the same trick from the previous life, shifting all the blame onto me. Seeing the doubt in my parents' eyes and the growing smile on my brother's lips, I didn't defend myself as I had in my previous life. Ziwan, what you said is wrong. No one expected that Alpha would be the first to speak up for me. Man is young. I not only see her as my master but also as my sister. Last night, she helped me clean up, and due to exhaustion, she couldn't get up on time. As her older brother, you should be more understanding. The living room fell silent for a moment, and the brother turned his head, staring at Alpha in disbelief. Mom's reproachful voice followed, yes, Ziwan, you leave early and return late every day. It's your sister and Alpha who handle all the housework together. Alpha didn't even say anything. Why are you getting so worked up? Seeing that both parents were speaking up for me, a crack appeared in the smile on my brother's face. Unable to frame me, he angrily threw down the slice of bread and walked out the door without looking back. Alpha obediently picked up his backpack and walked him all the way to the door. Just as I walked under the monitor, an unexpected incident occurred. I don't know what Alpha said, but my brother suddenly turned pale and turned around to punch Alpha in the face. Alpha fell down without any defense, but my brother still wouldn't stop, pulling his hair and scratching his eyes, as if he wanted to tear him apart alive. Both my parents and I saw this scene and rushed over to pull my brother away. Brother's eyes were red like a mad lion, and he pointed at Alpha angrily, shouting, I knew you had ill intentions. Dad, Mom, he's going to kill your son. Brother had made a scene just last night, and no one dared to believe his harsh words now. No matter how fierce they sounded, Father was even more enraged and slapped Brother hard, forcing him to calm down. Alpha is just a robot. What on earth did he do to provoke you, making you trouble him again and again? My brother's face was slapped to the side, yet a flicker of fear and excitement flashed in his eyes. You've all been deceived by him. He puts on airs in front of you. But do you know what he just said to me? He told me not to get too cocky, that sooner or later he would take away everything that belongs to me. The weight of these words was too heavy, and for a moment, everyone's gaze instinctively turned to Alpha. Alpha slowly rose to his feet, speaking with a hint of sadness. Ziwan, I never intended to hurt you. Let's just pretend what happened just now never occurred, okay? His tone was hesitant and submissive, as if hiding some unknown secret. My brother was completely fired up. He excitedly pointed at the surveillance camera overhead, insisting on exposing Alpha's true nature in front of our parents. Alpha's hand moved almost imperceptibly, which caught our parents' attention and made them suspicious as well. After all, he was their own son. Our parents immediately went back to their room and turned on the computer, ready to uncover the truth. The moment the surveillance footage came into view, everyone's expressions changed. In the footage, Alpha remained respectfully bowing his head, unmoving. Instead, it was his brother who, seeing no one around, leaned in close to his ear with a sly smile. Alpha, your muscles are really well toned, and your butt is perky. How about coming to my room tonight? Alpha looked up in surprise, and within just 1 second, he firmly refused him. Ziwan, this is against the rules and goes beyond my programming. Please behave yourself. My brother, feeling both embarrassed and angry, then did what we all saw. My brother's face instantly turned pale, and his lips trembled uncontrollably. Impossible. How could I say such a thing? Both parents' faces flushed with embarrassment at the same time, and they interrupted him with deep regret. Ziwan, we know you're in your adolescence, but we never expected the object of your puppy love to be a same-sex robot. Alpha even tried to cover for you, yet you turned around and blamed him. You've truly disappointed us. My brother wanted to explain further, But my parents didn't even spare him a glance. He looked at me pleadingly, only to find a mocking smile on my lips. In this life, my brother didn't yet know that special batch robots could not only control appliances but also use AI to fabricate memory scenes. Seeing all four of us united against him, the anger in my brother's heart could no longer be contained. He grabbed a fruit knife from the side and lunged at Alpha. He remains just as willful, but his parents won't keep tolerating it anymore. Alpha, get him under control for me. The moment Dad gave the order, Alpha suddenly lunged forward, clamping his brother tightly with iron-like arms. The brother's body was twisted like a pretzel, contorted out of shape, and he let out a painful howl. Mother couldn't bear to look away, but Father's attitude was firm. Don't go to school these next few days. I'll have a psychologist come to the house to properly treat your illness. My brother's desperate cries were shut behind the heavy door and soon could no longer be heard. When I came back from school, I found my brother and Alpha still in the same position as they were in the morning. Alpha still greeted me politely, but my brother's face was ashen. He stared at me without moving his eyes and suddenly asked, "Sujimon, you're behind all of this, aren't you?" I smiled and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." My brother stopped provoking me, but his eyes remained fixed on me, staring intently as if deep in thought. From that day on, my brother completely changed, becoming obedient. The psychologist came to our house a few times and said there was nothing wrong with him. Dad, half believing, lifted the restriction on him, but I knew my brother would never let this go easily. Sure enough, the day after the restriction was lifted, I saw the owner of the robotics factory at home. My brother sat beside him, giving me a sinister smile. My parents, like me, were completely confused. They didn't have a good impression of the boss and had no idea what he was scheming. Looking at Alpha standing quietly by, my brother's voice carried a note of certainty. "Dad, Mom, all the strange occurrences lately have been caused by Sujimon. It was her who controlled Alpha, making him provoke me, even altering the surveillance footage." His words were shocking. My parents were stunned for a moment but quickly regained their composure. "Ziwan, how long are you going to keep this up? Man is your own sister. She has no reason to do this at all." The boss spoke before my brother could. He looked at me with resentment and reluctantly revealed the truth. No wonder he strongly recommended Beijia to us. It turns out my brother had already paid the deposit, just waiting for our parents to bring her home. Unexpectedly, I showed up halfway, not only causing Beijia to make a mistake and be destroyed but also buying Alpha from the same batch as her. I admit I don't like Sujimon and only wanted a more obedient and sensible robot to teach her a lesson, but I never expected her to be even more malicious than me, actually planning to use Alpha to kill me first. The parents' expressions softened slightly in the face of their son's tearful plea. Seizing the moment, the boss stepped behind Alpha and revealed the robot's true purpose. Click the start button, and the robot can only perform ordinary functions, but if you double-click the startup key, the robot will immediately load a special program and only obey the master's commands. No matter the crime, whether murder or arson, it will charge ahead for me. He changed the subject, quickly double-clicked the start button, and gave Alpha the command, "Alpha, throw Sujimon out for me." The moment he received the command, Alpha moved. In front of everyone, he suddenly reached out and grabbed me by the collar. Before Mother's scream could escape her lips, it was swallowed back down. Instead, the first sound to ring out was my brother's incredulous roar. How is this possible? Not only did Alpha not harm me, but he also tightly shielded me in his arms in a protective stance, his tone resolute. "Only members of the Su family are my masters." Even the boss was stunned. But no matter how many times he tried, Alpha ignored his commands. "This is impossible. I personally developed all the robots. How could they not obey my commands?" The boss broke out in a sweat, and just as he tried to make adjustments, his parents had already called security, who unceremoniously kicked him out. When the door closed again, the older brother faced two pairs of eyes burning with fury. "Impossible. This is all fake." He collapsed helplessly to the ground, and I didn't add fuel to the fire, only gazing at him with pity. "Brother, I don't blame you. I'm just a little disappointed. You've been jealous of my intelligence and beauty since we were little, so you always had to compete with me. More than a decade has passed, and I thought you had grown up. I never expected you'd still resort to such despicable means to drag me down." My brother's lips trembled, and in the end, he crawled toward the door in a daze. "Ahmed, everyone's gone mad. You can act it out yourselves. I'm not sticking around." Unfortunately, before he could step out the door, Alpha grabbed the hem of his pants from behind, Father's voice was cold and hard, devoid of any warmth. Su Ziwan, it's clearly you who's gone mad. My brother received the harshest punishment ever. He was placed under semi-permanent house arrest and subjected to Alpha's surveillance day in and day out. He wasn't even allowed to share the table with us during meals anymore. Alpha took his usual seat, chatting and laughing with us as if nothing had changed. Everything before me is exactly the same as what happened in my previous life. Once, I was at the mercy of others, but now the tables have turned. Before bed, I couldn't bear it any longer and went to the kitchen myself to heat up the food, then brought it to my brother's room door. Get out, my brother looked at me as if I were a vengeful ghost. Just as he was about to cry out for help, Alpha covered his mouth. In just a few short hours, Alpha seemed to have completely transformed. His eyes sparkled, and a mischievous smile curled at the corner of his lips. Su Ziwan, I told you not to get too cocky. Why didn't you listen? Large beads of sweat broke out on my brother's forehead, and his entire body went limp as if he had just been pulled out of water. I watched him calmly, waiting until he had somewhat recovered, before honestly revealing everything I had done. The boss was indeed right. Just double-click the start button, and the robot would obey its owner's command, transforming into a ruthless killing machine. But I discovered that in my previous life, I had been fascinated by various machines since childhood, often disassembling and reassembling household electronics with skillful hands. Robots are machines too. In my previous life, although I was completely manipulated by Beijia, I quickly grasped the blind spots of controlling her after breaking through her circuits. But before I could put it into practice, I was brutally betrayed by my brother. This time, I had already put all my doubts into practice on Beijia on the very day of my rebirth. Beijia's behavior was not an accident, it was something I had deliberately orchestrated. As I double-clicked the start button, I quickly whispered my plan into her ear. Knocking down Dad and framing Mom were all within my expectations. As for Alpha, in the first second of his activation, I only made him follow one rule: endure. He suppressed the urge to poison his brother's food, endured the shame of being beaten black and blue by his brother, and even bore the pain of me tearing him apart alive. His physical structure is very similar to Beijia's. I just moved the button for loading special programs to a different location. Now the activation key on Alpha's nape is just for show. No matter how many times it's pressed, it won't affect him in the slightest. My brother's face drained of color. He stared at me numbly, and after a long pause, he forced a smile that looked even worse than crying. Man, I'm your own brother. I would never let anything slip. Can you please spare me? I promise from now on I won't compete with you for anything. The love of our parents and the company are rightfully yours. He probably guessed what I was about to do. I turned my back to him, my tone filled with deep sorrow and reluctance. Alpha, push him down for me. My brother is dead. He tried to escape by hanging a bedsheet from the window in the middle of the night, but he didn't watch his step and lost his breath the moment he fell. Mom fell ill and couldn't get up, while Dad put aside all his affairs and drowned his sorrows in alcohol all day long. Now, at last, they have begun to regret their past actions. Just a few words. How could Ziwan be so desperate as to want to die? That foolish child. Mom lay on the hospital bed, dazed and distant. Dad looked at his older brother's photo and wept uncontrollably. Ziwan may not be as good as Alpha in every way, but he was still a living person. Everyone has joys, anger, sorrows, and fears. They make mistakes and feel afraid. Yet we've always ignored their needs. I stood at the doorway of the hospital room, watching them regret their actions, but my heart remained calm, untouched by any emotion. In my eyes, my parents are the ones who most perfectly fit the characteristics of a robot. They truly managed to be impartial and treat everyone equally. In the previous life, they easily believed my brother and Beijia's words, tacitly allowing them to torment me until I was covered in wounds, and in this life, they were completely fooled by me and Alpha, ultimately leading to my brother's tragic death. They cried when my brother died. Perhaps when I died in the previous life, they likely reacted the same way. In the end, both my brother and I were merely tools they used to maintain the family and their image. Just out of the hospital, my parents rushed straight to the robot factory, demanding an explanation from the boss, but the entrance to the robot factory was completely blocked, and there, my parents discovered countless victims who had gone through the same experience as them. It turned out that the special batch of robots wasn't just Alpha and Beijia, there were a full 200 of them produced to maximize profits. The boss told people what they wanted to hear, and told ghosts what they wanted to hear, just because of his failure to report what he knew. Within just a few months, hundreds of originally happy families had been torn apart by the interference of robots. The crowd blocked the fleeing boss at the back door, and after beating him black and blue, he finally agreed to recall the special batch of robots and have them collectively destroyed, but Mom and Dad were unusually hesitant when they got home. Alpha was still just like before, having prepared a table of exquisite dishes early on. He skillfully took off his father's coat and hat, then knelt down to help his mother change her shoes. At the dinner table, he carefully removed the fish bones for his father, and when his mother coughed a few times, a cup of brewed chrysanthemum tea was immediately offered to her. It is difficult to go from luxury to frugality. Alpha began reporting the local news without knowing anything, mentioning that the city's largest robotics factory was about to close down. Due to the large number of people involved, the robotic factory has ceased production of robots and will recall and destroy all batches. Mom and Dad fell silent at the same time. If all batches are to be destroyed, it means they will never again enjoy such meticulous, round-the-clock service. After Alpha finished reporting the news, it quietly began slicing fruit for our family. I don't know if I was mistaken, but in the moment he lowered his head, I thought I saw my brother. I turned to look at my parents, and they wore the same expression as me. On the day the robot factory closed, many people gathered to watch. The thick smoke from the destruction of the robots lingered over the city for a long time, and we, still a harmonious family of 4 years later, I successfully graduated from university and returned to work at my family's company. Alpha had already become my father's most capable assistant. He showed me around the newly established department of the company and casually peeled an orange, handing it to my mouth. My colleagues looked at me with envy, curiously asking, "So, miss, is Alpha your boyfriend? He's so thoughtful." Alpha, as usual, flashed a smile and handed them the small gifts he had prepared. "I'm Man's older brother. She's been spoiled since childhood, so please be understanding." He was witty and humorous, smoothly engaging with whatever topics his colleagues brought up, making them giggle endlessly. He was becoming more and more like a real person. This thought lingered in my mind, refusing to fade away. With Alpha's help, I quickly became familiar with the company's operations, and any immature aspects were promptly identified and corrected. With him around, my parents have long since stepped back to a secondary role, spending their time traveling and dancing when they have nothing else to do. We haven't mentioned my brother's name in a long time. Alpha has taken his place, protecting our family in a more perfect form. That's great. Is this really good? Another year passed, and just as I was finally able to stand on my own and have the final say, I received a call from the hospital. My parents were in a car accident while on a road trip, and their lives were in critical condition. I rushed over with Alpha, just as my parents were being wheeled out of the emergency room. Though he barely saved his life, he would have to spend the rest of his days in a nursing home. After inspection, the problem was with the brakes. After Alpha, my dad completely stepped back from these little things, and now he regrets it. My mother is still unconscious, and my father has woken up. Seeing Alpha standing behind me, his eyes widen with anger. Why? He wanted to ask why Alpha, who always handles things meticulously, would make such a big mistake over such a trivial matter. Alpha still wore a proper smile on his face, though it seemed a bit forced to me. Man is my preferred master, and I unconditionally obey all her commands. My father's gaze changed, and when he turned to me, it revealed fear, surprise, and disappointment. But I was also disappointed in them. After my brother's death, my parents only resisted for a short while before calmly accepting Alpha, who had taken his place. But I can't help but feel sorrow for the rabbit's fate. Whenever my family sits together in harmony, I always uncontrollably think of my previous life. After my death, did they naturally accept Becca, calling the one who killed me their daughter or daughter-in-law? The more I think about it, the angrier I get. Why should I? Alpha's algorithm never makes mistakes. The current situation of my parents is exactly what I wanted to see. After leaving the hospital, Alpha remained silent for a long time. As he fastened my seatbelt, he suddenly hesitated and asked me, "The male and female owners are not at fault. Do we really have to do this to them?" I didn't answer, but instead told him to drive the car to the front of the abandoned robotics factory, once bustling with activity. The robotics factory now lies in ruins, with not a soul in sight. Alpha had no recollection of this place and was just beginning to wonder when I suddenly took a few steps back and whispered softly, Alpha, self-destruct. I said this with a tone of utter calm, as if I were simply asking Alpha to pour me a glass of water, but Alpha's reaction was beyond my expectations. In an instant, two different emotions appeared across his entire face. One half strictly followed my instructions, swiftly and calmly destroying all core programs within himself. The other half shed tears of oil like blood, contorted in agony, screaming at me, Man, I've been with you for so many years, how could you do this to me? Is it just because I said a few words for your parents today? Man. But even after his entire body was burned to ash, the powder blending into the ruins, I still stood there coldly, saying nothing. He would never know that I had this idea the day he forgot to open the car door for me because he was staring at a girl's back in a daze. After going through prison, the owner of the robot factory finally told the truth. The so-called special batch was actually defective products. They might be the sharpest knife in their master's hand 1 second, and the next second, they would turn the blade against their master's throat. Alpha already had human consciousness, so he had to die. He should have died 5 years ago in that mass destruction. It was I who gave him 5 more years of life. He should be thanking me. After everything settled, I turned gracefully, got into the car, and pressed the accelerator. Perhaps one day, I'll follow the trend of the times and buy another meticulous assistive machine, but for now, I want to get used to living alone. After hearing this story, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. We look forward to hearing from you.